Welcome to another episode of SportsVibe, episode 53. It's a big time in sports. We get the NBA Finals starting on Thursday, Stanley Cup Finals starting on Saturday, the Cricket World Cup in the U.S. and the West Indies. Exciting start to the tournament for sure. The U.S. chased down 194 from Canada, so that was one heck of a way to get started. Yeah, really cool to see that for sure, and maybe we'll touch on that later on in the episode and some of the other big games. India Pakistan this Sunday. The US plays Pakistan Thursday. India plays Ireland tomorrow. And a fun start to the tournament so far. Also, the French Open's been going on. I saw Djokovic retired with a medical injury. So I guess the men's field is kind of a little bit more open. I saw Alcaraz beat Tsitsipas in the quarterfinal, and then Sinner also won, and Ruud did too. So there's one more spot in the men's semis. Yeah, and then in the women's, Coco Gauff won in 3 sets. Swiatek won over Vondrousova, who I believe won Wimbledon last year. And yeah, that's how that's going. So maybe we'll touch on some of that later on in the episode. But of course, we talk a lot about NBA and NHL all year long, especially the playoffs. We've really taken a deep dive into all the series and stuff, and it's only right that we finish it off with some good analysis of the finals. Yeah, before we shift to the summer sports, I guess. But obviously, and the NBA finals, we did talk. Well, we kind of previewed it. The Minnesota series wasn't quite over, but it was 3-1. Dallas. So Dallas comfortably 1-4-1. Yeah, kind of comfortably. Minnesota gave them a good fight, just like Indiana gave Boston a good fight. But yet the series were lopsided in win totals. I would say, and then in Game 5, the Mavs had no problem. They're comfortably ahead. It really is a Luka and Kyrie show. Both of them dropped 36 in Game 5 and then dominating all series. And they've developed some chemistry, and it's like they've two closers. Not too many teams really have that, where they can have not one but two guys to go to in the big moments of the games. But of course, Dallas, the Mavs, what really made them, last year they missed the play-in tournament, and then this year they went to the finals. And yeah, sure, Kyrie and Luka, of course, are playing better, and like I said, they're the two closers. But really, like, what got them over the top is like all these other, their additions at the trade deadline, and some of their other players to the bench. And like Derek Lively's been playing really well. Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington, even Jones at times. So they really got like a starting five. Even a couple guys off the bench who can provide scoring. They got Kleba as well. So they definitely got some other pieces, but definitely Gafford, Lively, PJ Washington. Their forwards and center and Derek Jones. Their forward and center combination is really great. Obviously, they have an all-world backcourt that we haven't really seen quite some time with closers like Luka and Kyrie. But that's how the Mavs got there. Impressive, grueling gauntlet in the West, I would say. I mean, they obviously they beat the Clippers, they beat the Thunder, who played really well despite being very young, and they were the 1 seed. And then the Wolves, who just beat the Denver Nuggets, defending champion. To comfortably dispatch that team in 5 games is no easy task. But with that all being said, I mean, I still feel like they're going to be underdogs against the Boston Celtics. I think the Celtics have been far and away, the best team in the NBA in the regular season, at least, and even in the playoffs, they haven't really had too much of an issue. I guess a lighter, side, but I mean, they still beat, the Heat, the Cavs, and then the Pacers, who were really a tough opponent, I would say, for a lot of teams. Even without Halliburton, just the way those games went, the Pacers could have probably won at least 2, 3 of them, even if things went right. But is what it is. But yeah, regardless of how I feel about that. But Dallas, Boston really should be interesting. Porzingis is back in the lineup for Game 1. I saw, or he's scheduled to be. So I think that's a huge advantage for the Celtics. I think without Porzingis, I think this could be a tight series. I'm not. I still probably might give the advantage to Boston, but I think with Porzingis, I think it becomes definitely like the Celtics' advantage. They have, quite the stretch 5, I would say. The basket and guard the paint, and of course you got Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and all their usual starting 5. Drew Holiday and whoever I'm missing. But yeah, the Celtics they've been on a roll. They're obviously the favorite team in the series. But I think the Mavs give them a good fight. I mean, like, I think the Celtics haven't seen anyone like the Mavs in the East, and for good reason. So I think the Mavs can give them 6, maybe 7. I wouldn't even be surprised really if they were to win. But now with Porzingis back in the lineup, I think that's the missing piece for the Celtics that definitely I think pushes them over the top. So I mean, yeah, I think he's coming back at the right time for Boston when they need him the most. If I had to pick, right now, I'd probably go Celtics in 6, but I could even see it being 7. But I'd probably say Celtics in 6. But I think the Mavs do make this a good finals.
Yeah, I also go Boston 6. I think there's going to be two different factors that go into this. Um, so the first thing, of course, is like since Porzingis is coming back from his injury and he's inserted in the lineup for game one, the real question becomes how's he going to be tested? Because he's probably going to get picked on a lot by the Mavs, and but also at the same time, Porzingis stretches the floor for the Celtics to throw in a bunch of options. So it works both ways,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, there's like Luka, he's a beast. Like there's no stopping Luka. There's only like slowing him down.
Right.
But
Yeah.
but uh, I think the biggest question would be, of course, like Kyrie will certainly be. I think the person who would give him the most trouble when it comes to defense would probably be Drew Holiday, and I think for defensive matchup on Luca, that would at least be pretty effective. Probably Jalen Brown.
Yeah, I think probably Jalen Brown and Luca and Drew Holiday and Kyrie. I mean, Kyrie with his handles, his shooting ability. I mean, you definitely need like a lockdown defender, but that is who Drew Holiday has been in the past and continues to be for this team. I'd say a good replacement for Smart, if not even better. With Smart,
I mean,
he's not in
Smart
Milwaukee,
was
right?
in no,
But
no, he's in Memphis. No, but
he's in
Smart
Memphis,
is a
right? Yeah. It wasn't a 1-for-1. Yeah.
Smart is a
Okay.
defensive
Yeah.
anchor. The problem is he's
Right.
fairly inconsistent on offense, whereas Drew is
That's true.
in somewhat ways fairly similar because like you don't expect him to do a lot on offense, but he has a big calling on defense. But when the moment's needed, Drew's there to step up for offense. I mean, look at game one of the conference finals against the Pacers. Look at game three. Um, like Drew's had his moments where he's had to step up as an offense when his number is called, and he did so. So, I mean, realistically, with the starting five the Celtics are posting, Drew Holiday is obviously not going to need to be a primary scorer, especially when there's Jalen, there's Jason, there's Kristaps, and there's Derek. Drew Holiday realistically doesn't need to, put up 40 points. I mean, it'd be appreciated, and certainly be well registered, but there's certainly no need for it. But we know that, you know, he's more than capable of being able to carry some offensive load if needed. So Drew Holiday in my mind, is perhaps the biggest X factor going into the series, even though he's a starter. It's not even Chris Outs being healthy and being started for game one.
Yeah, it's an interesting take. I definitely think Porzingis being back, I think that's like I said, I think that could be the difference between like a really tough series that the Mavs could steal and the Celtics having control.
And also now,
Yeah,
Al Horford's coming back off the bench, and then Sam Hauser he had a
exactly.
pretty awful. Yeah, Sam Hauser had a pretty awful conference finals, especially shooting from downtown. You're still hoping he'll be a little bit better, and if not, they also have Peyton Pritchard to go to on the bench. And now that Porzingis is back in the lineup, I still expect that his minutes to be limited for probably the first game or two. And then Horford's going to play pretty decent backup minutes, so it's possible like Queta or Tillman might be a third man center rotation just needed. But I think as the series shifts to Dallas for games 3 and 4, I think we'll see a tighter rotation on the Celtics to where Tillman and Cueto aren't necessarily called upon, but I expect Hauser and Pritchard, and definitely Horford to be used in the rotation.
Yeah,
And
for
it's about
sure.
yeah,
Yeah, I
and it's
mean,
about damn
yeah,
time Al Horford gets his first ring. It's about damn time.
I know he's really been bouncing all over the league, really. But I think he found a good home in Boston. He's always like he's also able to shoot the three very well, actually, for a center. So he's another kind of stretch five option there that they have on the bench, and he's been starting big minutes for the Celtics. So yeah, yeah, I mean we always think about the starting five, but I mean definitely Sam Hauser, Peyton Pritchard's been great. They've played in the regular season, they've had minutes, and they've been a big part of the rotation, and they score points. It's not just the starting five for Boston. I mean they also have a bit of their own bench as well. And that's another reason why they're so successful is because they have players who can come in and when the starters rest, they can provide big minutes and get buckets and do whatever else the team really needs. And I mean, yeah, they also have like Derek White, of course. I mean, they have different guys who can come in. And yeah, exactly. You're talking about Keita. So I mean, or yeah, Nebius Quaida. So I mean, yeah, they have different guys who could definitely come off the bench for them. I think Al Horford in the bench five. I think that's really that's
Yeah,
going to help a lot having him come off the
I
bench and
don't
Porzingis.
yeah, I don't really expect that much for the Celtics to use Luke Cornett. I don't expect that much, um, especially since I think since Tillman he's a bit more physical
Yeah,
as a center. And I think in this series especially, physicality will be slightly more valued, especially because Boston already has a deadly arsenal of shooters to go on the court at all times. So I think if physicality is needed, which it most certainly will be in the series, if they need to like go past Horford and Porzingis, I think we can expect more from Quaida and Tillman rather than Quaida, Tillman, and Cornette.
yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I agree with that about Keita and Tillman, and yeah, Cornette's probably not going to be honestly, but speaking of Celtics centers, I kind of missed the time war. Like, honestly, I'm not really a big Celtics fan, but I thought he was like really good, like Robert Williams, just stuffing guys. But I mean, they certainly do have their options, and I think he was also Robert Williams, he was often injured and stuff like that. But I don't know, I just really like his game, but. No, yeah, I think the Celtics will be fine. I think some of the other storylines, obviously Kyrie against the Celtics, there's a lot of hate that goes both ways from the Brooklyn days, but it seems like he's taking a more mature approach to it. We'll see if there's any bad blood that kind of flares out. I'm sure Celtics fans aren't thrilled that I mean, I'm sure they're going to be booing him, but I'm sure it's not even really going to be in good fun, but it's going to add some entertainment series, I feel like, and also just seeing if Kyrie can torch his old team again. But yeah, I mean, I feel like that whole dynamic is going to be really interesting. Him versus him versus the Celtics with the Mavs. Of course, the whole stepping on the logo. There's just a lot that went on with him, the fans, and saying he was going to be back, and then he left, and then he ended up pretty much doing the same thing in Brooklyn out. So I mean, but I feel like I don't know. I feel like the Mavs is a good fit for him. I feel like he's found his place where he can kind of just be content to play basketball and not really focus on all that outside stuff. And he's playing really good again. It's been a while since like he could just. I mean, his game's always really good, but like it's been a long time since he's really just kind of locked in on the basketball. And I think now that he's done that, and he has a player in Luka Doncic who can kind of carry the load or can kind of be like not even carry the load. They can kind of share the load. But I think Dallas is a good fit, but it's gonna be really interesting to see how the crowd is when he's guarding, how he is, his reactions and stuff. Probably won't be as bad because time passed by, but I'm sure Boston fans don't forget. I'm sure he also doesn't forget, but I think he's already said that he's been able to control his emotions and kind of learn from that time, and he's in a better place now. And I could certainly see that, like in the way he he acts and with the Mavericks, it's completely different. It seems like it's a completely different guy. But I'm excited to see him and Luka, um, take the stage, I guess, in the NBA Finals. And I kind of wish it was Minnesota, but at the same time, Yeah, I'm happy because I feel like those are two guys who, they both definitely are really skilled, and Luka's never really gotten that chance to like make a finals run for all his like great play in the regular season. So I feel like it's cool that we're getting to see them out of the West. It's a little
Well,
bit, it's nice and fresh, and then against a team like the Celtics too.
well, speaking of legends that have never had a chance to make the finals, let's talk about the Oilers and the Panthers. Connor McDavid. So,
Mm,
but before
yeah,
a little bit of hockey news. Before that, Joe Pavelski from the Dallas Stars and of course San Jose Sharks legend announced his retirement after 18 seasons. Damn shame he never got a chance to win the cup. It's a damn shame. Lots of
I
legends
know.
go out that way. It sucks. But show must go on. Now we have a battle between uh, let's see, the Edmonton Oilers and the defending Eastern Conference champions, Florida Panthers. Now, this is going to be very, very interesting. I expect I expect. I mean, my pick is Edmonton in six, but I think, I mean, of course, Edmonton by far has the better first line. I mean, come on, you have a dry side. I mean,
McDavid
like
right now, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like on your first line, you have Ryan Nugent Hopkins, Connor McDavid, and Zach Hyman. Like that
Uh,
first line can almost
yeah.
never be beat. But the Panthers, to me, they have a much better team stacked throughout in terms of line pairing. So let's see. So first line analysis for uh, Oilers to Panthers. Hopkins, McDavid, Hyman. I mean, come on, that's a lethal first line right there. Versus
Oh, yeah.
Verhage, Barkov, and Reinhardt. I mean, don't get me wrong. The the Panthers' first line is excellent, but you're not beating the Oilers' first line. That's impossible. Oilers' second line,
Right.
you have Ryan McLeod, Leon Draisaitl, and Corey Perry. Um, and then Panthers' second line, Kachuk, Bennett, and Rodriguez. Without a doubt, I think the Panthers have a superior second
Or
line. Then third line, you have Dylan Holloway, Adam Henrique, and Evander Kane versus Luosterainen, Lundell, and Tarasenko. Um, This one's a bit tougher, but I give the edge
yeah.
uh, to the winger for the Panthers, specifically Tarasenko. Uh, and let's not forget, Tarasenko, unfortunately, is a Stanley Cup champion. He brings that experience to the Panthers. I mean, he was with the Rangers last year, and now he's
Right.
not. Well, he was traded to the Panthers, and I still don't understand why Ottawa traded him for like basically like 5 cents, but whatever. Um, and so the fourth line for the Oilers, you have Jan Mark, you have Derek Ryan, Connor Brown versus Steve Lawrence, Kevin Stunland, and Kyle Okposo. Um, I mean, I don't really have a verdict on the fourth line here, so I'm just going to call it a tie. But regardless, the Oilers have a lethal first line, but I think the Panthers have the superior second and third line. And then as for defensive pairings, I mean, come on. I don't really think this is a competition. I still think the Panthers win in terms of defensive pairings. So for the first defensive pairing, there's Matthias Ekholm and Evan Bouchard versus Gustav Forsling and Aaron Ekblad. Uh, this first defensive pairing competition is a lot closer than it seems. You could certainly make the argument both ways. So I'll just call that one a tie. Second one, Darnell Nurse versus Brent Kulik. Uh, And then for the Panthers, it's Mikola and Brandon Montour. I mean, Darnell Nurse is god awful on defense. He's been the worst player on the ice throughout those playoffs. I think he's at a minus 13 going to the finals. I mean, then again, the plus minus stats, it's, it's either very overrated or very like it's either very overrated or very justified as a stat. Depends on who you are. Me, I don't think plus minus is exactly a great indicator of how well players perform. You just need to watch the game, and I've seen plenty of times where Darnell Nurse has been like a liability on ice. And for the Panthers, uh, I think Montour, he's certainly the like Montour to me like in terms of the second pairing of defensemen for both the Oilers and the Panthers. Montour for the Panthers is the better one. So I gotta give the second pairing to the Panthers. And then for the third pairing, there's Broberg and Cody Ceci. Cody Ceci, of course, was a defenseman for the Leafs. So potentially quite a few former Leafs could again win their first Stanley Cup. Zach Hyman, of course. should the Oilers be victorious, and then the third defensive pairing for the Panthers, Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Dmitry Kulikov. Without a doubt, I give this one to the Panthers. And then we could talk about the power play and penalty kill units, but that's whatever. I mean, those players have time to gel on ice. And then the goalie competition. I mean, Stuart Skinner versus Sergei Bobrovsky. Really, without a contest, it's Bobrovsky. Although I will say,
Skinner's playing on his head
no,
though.
Skinner's been red hot since he's inserted for a game for the lineup against Vancouver. So it seems like Skinner has been red hot. So obviously Bobrovsky is the superior goalie, and there's a reason why he's a Vezina finalist. But I mean, with the way Skinner's been playing so far, Vancouver's had a pretty solid offense. I mean, you could argue they're probably better known for their defense, especially with Quinn Hughes as their captain. And for the Dallas Stars, you could argue that they're the most balanced team in the league, with both a balanced offense and balanced defense, and especially a pretty darn good goaltender in Jake Ottinger. And Skinner's been very effective against the Stars. Like, it's been fairly low scoring series. I mean, granted, the Dallas Stars offense in my mind is nowhere near as lethal as the Panthers, and the Panthers just seem to strike it well, whereas the Stars, they seem to have more like a wear you down type of offense. So, but still, Skinner's certainly been able to catch up his game a lot, and he's looked really sharp between the pipes. I wouldn't, and it's not like he's had just a bunch of scrubs hitting the puck towards him. It's not like he's had a bunch of fourth liners or whatever. I mean, still have to deal with an arsenal of talent against Dallas and Vancouver. So, and even the Kings to an extent. So, I wouldn't say underestimate Stuart Skinner, but without a doubt, Bobrovsky is the better goalie going into the finals. So, all things on paper, it says that the Panthers should probably win this, but I mean, one, I can't bring myself to root for the Panthers, and two, it's about time McDavid and Draisaitl get their chance to kiss the cup.
I know.
So
Yeah,
I will.
yeah.
So you can call this pick irrational, or you can call it rational. I don't care, whatever you say. I'm going Oilers in 6.
Yeah, no, that's a thorough analysis of both their lineups. Yeah, it's like both of these teams, it's like you kind of can't count them out for like different reasons. I saw like this thing on Instagram where it's like the Panthers win by they have all these players and their goalie and this and that, and then like they for Edmonton they show highlights of like McDavid and like juking everyone out and scoring goals and Draisaitl, and it's kind of true, but like at the same time, I mean, like you said, like Skinner's been playing really well. They got. Yeah, I mean, like Nugent Hopkins, and that's really tough first line. Draisaitl and their former Devil Adam Henrique's going for his first cup, so that should be an interesting thing. I don't know. Rooting wise, I'm not really too sure because I'm really happy the Panthers kind of played the role for the second season of knocking out. Last season they beat the Canes, who beat the Devils, and then this year the Canes were probably also rooting for them because the Rangers beat them too. So yeah, no, it was great. I was really enjoying Game 6. But anyway, so I don't want to like abandon that, but at the same time, I do want to see Ben Draisaitl win the cup, and also it's just hard to count out Edmonton because I mean, like everyone was like, we were all thinking the Stars are so much like better, even like the same thing, like they're deeper, they have all these, they have good goaltending and this and that, and they'll be able to pull it off, and but then
I did pick Dallas in 6. I did pick Dallas in 6, but I did say I would really like to. I did say realistically Edmonton has a great chance to win it. So, I mean, but then again, I did pick Dallas in 6, so I can't dispute that fact. Also, one last thing you didn't know: this is the first time in I believe Stanley Cup history that the top 4 overall draft picks from the same class are playing in the Stanley Cup Finals together. In the 2014 draft. First overall pick was Sam Bennett. Second overall pick was Aaron Ekblad. Third overall pick, Sam Reinhart. Fourth overall pick, Leon Draisaitl. 3 of those players are on the Panthers, and only one of those dudes is on the Oilers.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Another thing I found really interesting.
Here's the thing: only only one of those players was actually drafted by the Panthers, Aaron Ekblad.
That's true. Yeah. And speaking of fun facts, I think one thing that's really interesting about the series is how far this doesn't really have to do with hockey that much, but Edmonton and South Florida. I mean, on opposite ends of not even the Edmonton's quite a bit farther north of the border than most of the other Canadian cities, and it's also farther to the west.
Apparently,
and it's the farthest, right? Since Vancouver,
apparently
Boston, or even farther than that.
No, apparently it's the longest by flight. I originally thought it was Boston versus Vancouver is the longest one in terms of flight distance. I mean, yeah.
I think it's because it's both west and north. It's like on opposite ends both ways. So
yeah, Vancouver
like 7 versus something like that.
Like Boston versus Vancouver, that's just primarily just west. Like there wasn't really much
to
north
west.
movement.
Yes, there's not much north to south in there. Yeah, exactly. Because Boston's also much farther north than in the Florida southeast, Edmonton like northwest. So yeah, like climate wise, fandom wise, like all that should be really, really interesting. It's like the like we were saying, where you got like the stardom of McDavid and Draisaitl, and the big market in Edmonton and Canada trying to go for their first cup in a long time, since like 93 or 94, I believe, and 93, and then Montreal, right? Yeah.
Well, regardless of
the Rangers.
Regardless of who wins this series, there will be one definitive loser. That's the Calgary Flames, because it's either you see your superior brother in Edmonton Oilers win their 6th Stanley Cup Finals in 40 years, or you see two of your former players, Sam Bennett and Matthew Tkachuk, hoist Lord Stanley after ditching Calgary, especially with Tkachuk demanding a trade out. So it's more of a pick your poison,
right?
But I mean, I think Flames fans I think they'd rather take a hockey puck to the face than root for the Oilers. So I imagine they'd be pulling very hard for the Panthers.
Yeah, probably Canucks fans also probably feel the same way to an extent. But yeah, they're probably a lot of Canadian teams, especially in the West, are probably going to root for the Panthers, actually, which is kind of interesting. But especially Western Canada. But yeah, I mean, in terms of, I don't know. I'm sure whoever wants to see Canada win a cup will root for Edmonton, and I kind of do want to see Canada win one, or at least the Northern City win one. But at the same time, the Cats are scrappy and stuff. But yeah, I kind of do want Edmonton to win.
For me, it's not rooting by Canada. For me, it's not rooting by Canada. It's about rooting for McDavid, Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Zach Hyman.
Yeah, exactly. It's their guys.
And Evan Bouchard.
They deserve a chance to win. It's kind of like. I mean, I guess you could kind of make the comparison to like Luka, maybe not Kyrie so much, but yeah, you could argue like players that skill should deserve to win a ring, and in the NHL, these guys are like the top. You know what I mean? So like, of course, you want to see them win and get a chance to win the.
Listen, Connor McDavid wipes.
But it's a different level. Connor McDavid is 100%. It wasn't even that great of a comparison, but you get what I'm trying to say. Like, but yeah, no, McDavid. Like, you want to see guys like that win the Stanley Cup.
Maybe we could say like Luka's like a Draisaitl. I mean, if you think about it, they have the same.
Yeah, Luka's kind of like a one-of-one type. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Luka's kind of like a one-of-one type player too, and he's also just generational talent, one of the best in the game, and with Jokic out, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like it might be his time with all the way the West has gone, but at the same time, like Celtics, but yeah, similarly, yeah, I do agree. I think guys like Nugent Hopkins, McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman. I mean, their lineup is just so they have some of the biggest stars in the game, and people want to see them win. Rightfully so, and get a chance to win the biggest trophy. It is kind of the biggest trophy. It's probably, in my opinion, the coolest one when they take the victory lap with the cup, and everyone gets to hold it. It really is cool. I think it's even that much cooler than the Larry O'Brien trophy and a lot of the other trophies. So I mean, Stanley Cup. But I'm really looking forward to the series. I guess one more thing I'll say is I also do got the Oilers in 6. That being said, count out the Panthers at your own risk, because I mean, if there's any team that I could see beating them, it's the Panthers. Like you cannot count these guys out, and because like you said, they're deeper. They have all these players on all these different lines. They have good defensemen. They have probably the better goalie, and they have guys like Reinhardt and Kachuk and Barkov and Hagee and so many others that you can count out.
And
they're scrappy. They're like more than scrappy when they're actually good. You know what I mean?
And also, let's not forget, Paul Maurice is one of the most experienced coaches in the NHL. And this is Chris Knobloch, who replaced the fired Jay Woodcroft mid-season. Fired Jay Woodcroft. The Oilers were 31st at the time of his firing. Chris Knobloch took over. Edmonton rattles off a 16-game win streak, and then lo and behold, they're here in the Stanley Cup Finals. So, I mean, it's a crazy story, really. I mean, now the question, I imagine if Edmonton wins the Cup, I don't imagine Jay Woodcroft's name would be etched on there because he didn't even last a quarter of the season, I think. I didn't think. I remember saying when Woodcroft got fired, I think it was either here or Twitter. I know I definitely said it on Twitter. I don't know about here, where it said I didn't think Woodcroft was the problem. I thought it was the upper management, as in specifically Ken Holland, because he had a history of doing this in Detroit, trying to rebuild a falling empire on the fly, and it ended up putting the Red Wings back pretty much half a decade. Only now the Red Wings are flourishing. So, but still, so I thought the problem was Ken Holland, but apparently Chris Knobloch stepped in, said, "I got this," and was able to bring the Oilers to the Stanley Cup Finals. And so, yeah, it's a testament and even then last year, I wouldn't necessarily have called the Panthers the underdogs throughout because they were pretty good they were pretty good in 2020, lethal in 21, and of course they got slapped by Tampa Bay. Then 22 wins the President's Trophy, and again you get slapped by Tampa Bay. 23, most of the team was still there. The only main difference was Matthew Tkachuk in for Jonathan Huberdeau, and then they make the Stanley Cup Finals. Of course, they made it in a fairly unconventional fashion. I don't know if that's the right word to use there, but still. And so, like the Panthers, they come back to the Stanley Cup Finals. Most pundits going into the offseason last year were saying Panthers, they're not going to repeat that again, and everything. I had a feeling, no, they're going to at least make a fairly deep run yet again, probably conference finals at the least. So, like, it just goes to show. And, of course, like, the Panthers, they transitioned from pretty damn good head coach to pretty damn good head coach. Joel Quenneville was behind the bench. And, of course, with the role of the Chicago Blackhawks scandal, he resigned. And then in comes in Andrew Brunette. And then they won the President's Trophy in 22. He gets canned after they lose to the Lightning. And then in comes Paul Maurice. And then Paul Maurice brings the Panthers to back-to-back Stanley Cup Finals appearances. So despite Maurice, being fairly new blood with Florida, he's still one of the most experienced coaches in the NHL. Like, he's had years on years of experience. Whereas here, this is Chris Knobloch's not even his first full season. He took over for the Oilers when about a quarter of the season was in the way. So, so there's a lot of different matchups here. And I imagine Maurice has learned a lot from last year. Of course, Vegas and Edmonton are two vastly different teams, without a doubt. Like Edmonton, you can see they are more of a speedy team, like just freight trains running on the ice. Whereas Vegas was a little bit more physical, combined with some speed and some finesse. And where the Panthers were just scrap. Of course, now the Panthers are scrap with a lot more speed. So the Panthers are definitely a more lethal team by themselves, but don't count out the Oilers.
Right. Yeah. It's weird. I'm saying like the kind of the same thing, but the opposite. Like the Oilers are so talented, and they've also like proven people wrong against the Stars. That last game, that's the getting outshot 33-10, but capitalizing on the power play a couple times and getting the win. That was kind of an interesting case, but typically don't win a game like that, but they were able to do it. So
you usually don't.
I'm saying the opposite. you usually don't, because usually if you outshoot a team that much and you're dominating, time in the offensive zone and everything, that means you're the better team. And the Panthers really did that against the Rangers and just kept putting the pressure on, and eventually, some shots went in, and the Rangers didn't really have enough going on their offensive end. But so yeah, I'm kind of saying the opposite. Like, yeah, the Oilers are so talented, but don't count the Panthers. I guess you're kind of trying to like say it the other way. Like, the Panthers are really talented, but don't count out the Oilers. I think we're kind of both making the same point, but I think we both kind of agree. But we're both, yeah, like I said, they're both like not meant to be counted out. Like I said, I still give the advantage to Edmonton, but if there's anyone who can overcome that kind of a talent, it really isn't that big. It's got to be the Panthers, because they've shown that they've been able to do it, over and over again. Last year, this year, other than like Vegas, of course, but like, since then, like, they've been back, if not better. So I mean, I'm really looking forward to the series. It should be a fun one. Some great hockey coming up. Some great basketball coming up too. I'm looking forward to the finals. I mean, it should be a good one. Yeah, I think the Mavs are going to be a good match for Boston. So it's not going to be like a cakewalk to the championship, thank God. But there should be some good basketball and some good hockey. Yeah, I guess also, going on sports, we could touch on that, the Cricket World Cup first week in the tournament. So that's been exciting so far. I guess mainly so far it hasn't been too many games, but the U.S. Canada, like the U.S. chasing down 194, that was very
that was
exciting.
the home run. That was the home run derby that game. Like,
yeah, very high scoring. Because a lot of these other games that high scoring, but for Canada, I think two of their players, Dhaliwal and Kirtan, both had 50. They put up a really high score. I was kind of a little.
I will say I was surprised at how good of a game Papua New Guinea and West Indies was. I mean,
me too. I did not expect the West Indies to, to have that much trouble. I mean, to need till the 19th over, but I kind of have like the West Indies potentially being like a dark horse to like maybe to compete for the final four of their tournament, because I think the home field.
The West Indies have always been contenders ever since the first Cricket World Cup.
Exactly. They've been really good at the T20 format for sure. Like they've won two championships.
Forget T20. They've just been really good at cricket. Like ever since
they're one of the top.
Ever since it became an international competition. I mean, you could. There's certainly the argument, especially in both T20 and international format. Well, T20 is international. I mean, Cricket World Cup format.
Mm-hmm.
You could argue that. Yeah, you could argue that that West Indies has supported the greatest team in cricket history for both of them. I mean, first of all, I could just say the name Vivian Richards, and you could end the argument right there. Vivian Richards is perhaps the greatest batsman who's ever lived. And of course, there's Andy Roberts, there's Malcolm Marshall. Like, those guys were lethal. Like, I don't know if you've seen the movie 83. I mean, of course, that's the Indy underdog story versus West Indies. But still, that movie captured how truly intimidating and great the West Indies were, like, as a team. Again, I could just end the argument at Vivian Richards. That's all I can say.
Right. And even in the modern day, like, Brathwaite and Gale and like all the guys who won, the T20 World Cup and 2014 or whatever year they recently won it, and they've just been a force. So I mean, last World Cup didn't go too well for them, but I think they can bounce back, and I think they'll have a good time. But yeah, Papua New Guinea did give them a really tough fight. I mean, I was not expecting that like at all.
Yeah, and Oman and Namibia, they that was fun because they went to Super Bowl. I mean, listen, there are lots of games when it goes to Super Over, like you're just like, oh, come on. But there are certain games when it goes to Super Over, you're just like, oh, hell yeah. And perhaps the greatest example was the previous World Cup, not 23, 19, England versus New Zealand in the final.
Yeah, no, that
went to Super Over. I mean, personally, I still think New Zealand got jobbed on that game because you could see when New Zealand threw the ball back in, Stokes was running, Ben Stokes of England, and the ball went off of him, and then it went to the boundary, so it counted an extra 4 runs on that ball. I think that's ridiculous, but like, I don't know if cricket has any exact rule on interference and anything, and so England was able to push it to Super Over and claim the World Cup on their own home soil. I still think New Zealand got robbed, and of course, like I mean, listen, India, New Zealand. New Zealand has had in yeah. New Zealand has pretty much dominated India, especially in the 19 semifinals. That was dreadful. Uh, my cousins are still a bit bitter about that. But like Kane Williamson, he deserved the championship that year. Kane Williamson deserved it, and it's a damn shame he didn't get it. But um, yeah, uh, sorry, losing my voice a little bit. But
Yeah, good.
uh, yeah, so going into that, I will tell you what I was surprised by: Sri Lanka laying an egg. Like,
Oh yeah.
like are you kidding?
Yeah, they
Like
went 77 all
77.
out, and I was just like,
Yeah, you didn't even get to 20 overs. Like South Africa barely had to
I
try.
know. I know. They actually kept that one going for quite a while, but yeah, I think it has something to do with the pitch in New York. Like, I feel like it's just harder to. We'll see if this is true or not, like with the matches to come.
Oh, you
But
saw those
I
reports
don't. They
too.
didn't really do a great job. Yeah, I did.
No,
Yeah.
you saw
It
those
is like
reports
a.
about the crappy pitch.
Yeah, it seems like a bowler's pitch, but I don't know. But then India and Bangladesh, the warm-up match. I mean, that was a bit more high. It wasn't like exceptionally high scoring, but it was reasonable. So I don't know if it was just the sides or but even South Africa struggled to get. I mean, they didn't really struggle. They still got there in 16 overs, but it took longer than like I don't know, or maybe it's playing conservative because you
Yeah,
don't want to risk it. And they need to be safe. I don't know, but
yeah,
I think the big mistake was on an unfamiliar pitch to choose to bat first. Like just you should always chase. Like especially if you're not sure, right? Like I feel like they really
I
made a
think you should
mistake with
always
that.
chase. Yeah, I think you should always
Yeah,
chase. And of
and
course,
yeah, the team that chases most of the
yesterday,
time, like I think wins. Yeah.
yeah, and of course yesterday, Afghanistan, they destroyed Uganda, and um, I mean, I didn't really think it was much of a surprise. I mean, Afghanistan could have potentially
Right.
been in the Afghanistan could have potentially made a play for the semifinals last tournament for the Cricket World Cup, but of course, Glenn Maxwell happened. Glenn Maxwell perhaps had the greatest, yeah, he had perhaps the greatest performance in Cricket World Cup history. Do you remember that one? The 201, especially when both of his legs were cramping. Perhaps the greatest
Mm,
cricket match
yeah.
I mean, maybe not cricket match, but greatest cricket individual performance I've ever seen. Like
Yeah, no,
from the batsman.
I agree with that one. For sure. Yeah, yeah. I guess going back to the U.S. Canada game though, I mean, yeah, that was an exceptional win by the United States. Like I was kind of didn't really think Canada kind of being the weaker team, and the U.S. beat them 4 times, and then even both the U.S. and Canada were already kind of like the quote unquote minnows of the group. So I was like, if Canada's
I mean,
gonna really struggle that much, like not expecting a ton, but they played really well too. Like they, like I said, Dollywall at 61, Kieran at 55. They put up a really high 195 or 194 with 5 wickets taken. The U.S. chased it down though. Aaron Jones, 94 not out with 10 sixes.
I
Second
mean,
exceptional.
apparently the United States just loves having players named Aaron Jones.
Like the running back from
Yeah,
Green Bay. So yeah. And then Andres Goose, I guess former South African. I don't know if he played for their team, but like of South African origin. But he had 65, and he was a big partnership with Jones. But it was such an exciting win because like they chased it down. Like I wouldn't say easily, but like once Jones and Goose like started turning it up, especially Jones, they had no problem. Canada, some of their bowlers kind of like slipped a little bit. Like Nikhil Tuck, he had like a really bad over, and then I think Gordon had like an even worse over, and
yeah.
a lot of balls and extra hits, and the U.S. completely just took advantage of all that. But yeah, I mean, in terms of that was a good win. Both of them, I think, they both have a lot of tougher competition going on coming up. And then the Netherlands beat Nepal. I thought Nepal played a well match. A lot of fans there in Texas, so a lot of American fans. I love seeing like that, like a lot of Indian American, South Asian cricket fans were cheering on the U.S. It was like a really cool kind of
Yeah,
like the teams themselves, like
we
a lot
make
of
up
cultures, right?
we make up single handedly like 90% of the cricket base.
Oh yeah. Between Indians and others,
just Asians in
even
general.
just Indians. Yeah. All this, South Asians is pretty much exactly like Willows. Based, like thank God I have Willows so I can watch this tournament. But yeah, all the ads are like geared to India and
Yeah.
South Asia. But yeah, it makes sense. Like so many of the
I've
fans
seen
are like
quite a
almost
few.
all of them.
I've
So I mean,
I've seen quite a few Maggie noodles ads.
yeah, I've seen them like on repeat. So but yeah, I mean tomorrow. Speaking of India, they get started against Ireland tomorrow. I think that's going to be a good game. I think India hopefully gets the win. I can't wait to see what the crowd looks like there in New York tomorrow. I'm sure. I've seen
You
so
know
many of
it's
the other South Asian fan bases feel like take over. They're gonna really take over. And then of course India Pakistan, the big rivalry. I think India should probably beat Ireland, no problem. But I think Ireland could also give them a good fight. They're no team to take lightly. They've made some deep runs. I think we might still get a pretty decent game. We'll have to see how that pitch goes. Like if they can really put up runs on it, if that was a one-time thing, or because you don't want to see that the whole tournament,
yeah.
right? And then
Hopefully,
the U.S. Pakistan, I have to see the U.S. Give them a good fight. Let's see how good this team really is. Like
I mean,
you know what I mean? I
I
don't
don't
know.
I don't
I don't
expect the
think they're
United
winning though.
I don't expect the United States to beat Pakistan.
Yeah, but I think they might put up a better fight than like a lot. It won't. I don't think it'll be like the wash like people think it is, based on like the way they like came back against Canada. Like I think they'll be in it for a while, and then. But I don't know. I could be wrong, but I think they'll
No,
at
no,
least
no.
have a chance to make it interesting.
Here's what I think: the United States will be in it as long as they're fielding first.
Yeah, so they could chase. Yeah, because the chase is always like where it gets
Yeah,
interesting.
I
Like
mean,
if Pakistan
it's
chases
kind of
them,
like,
they're gonna be done.
but it's kind of like baseball in this aspect. I mean, of course, cricket and baseball are two very different sports, and if you've been on Twitter over the past couple of days, you've seen a lot of baseball versus cricket
Oh,
arguments. Seen quite a few, but
oh
it's like
yeah, I've
this in
been
this.
enjoying seeing that.
No,
Yeah.
no. I mean, here's my thing. Both a baseball and a cricket fan, obviously. A traditional batsman of cricket
Right.
cannot do what a batter does in baseball today. Likewise, likewise a
Yeah.
bowler likewise a bowler in cricket cannot live up to the expectations of a pitcher today. Because if you look at the throwing mechanics, it's two
Okay.
completely different things. And if you look at the
Oh
batting
yeah.
mechanics for
Hmm.
the two sports, two completely different things. Now, where was I before I was getting sidetracked? Oh yeah, chasing. It's better to be the home team in both scenarios because the home team, like you know how much you're down by, so like you're like thinking, okay, we just need to get, for example, in cricket, let's say you have 3 overs left, and so 18 balls, and you're like, we have 26 runs. I'm like, okay, that's fairly easy to
Hmm.
do. I mean, you know exactly the expectation you need to chase, and at the same time, let's say it's the bottom of the eighth inning, for baseball, you're down 4-2 in the game. You're like, okay, well, time's running out, but we need two to tie. Whereas if you're the visiting team, and you finished your top of the ninth, and you're thinking, yeah, it's 3-1. We have a good chance of winning right now.
It's a
Uh,
wrap. Yeah.
yeah, you think that, but you
Well,
don't
that's
know
the
how
thing. So
lethal
like,
it could be in the last possible moment. And likewise, you finish up your batting first as a cricket team. Let's say, like in this T20, let's say you finish at, I don't know, 160 runs.
like 210.
Call
Or
and
well, yeah. What?
yeah, and yeah, 160 and even 8 runs per over. The hitting team now has an idea of how much of what rate they need to chase. They need to chase
Right.
eight runs and
Exactly.
over. So like it works to the advantage of the hitter. I mean, of the hitting team. Unless if you like, I don't know, do something like freaking 320 over 20, which sounds ludicrous, but who knows? Wait, is that
Right.
even possible? I mean,
320
well,
runs and 20 overs. It
I mean,
theoretically yes. In actuality, I mean
theoretically,
the
yeah,
IPL they got pretty close to it a few times. I think didn't they? Like
yeah,
they
that
had
is
high
true.
200s. Yeah. It's like all
Yeah,
about like the pitch. Like that's what I realized. Like like I think
yeah.
the Dallas pitch is much more like run friendly, even though today's match wasn't really
No,
that. Yeah,
no,
but I
like
mean,
and
then
also
the
going
New
back to the
York pitch was,
finals,
you know what I
and
mean?
also going back to the Cricket World Cup finals last year, which I'm still a little bit bitter over about, but not too much.
Mm,
Like
yeah.
India, India lost that game for a multitude of reasons. One, they didn't get the chance to feel. No, yeah, they were batting first. That's never you. I mean,
Big
of
mistake.
course they,
Yeah.
of course they, yeah, they lost the coin toss, I believe. So Australia
Right.
elected to
Yeah.
field. So India didn't know what they needed to chase. Like we've seen India throughout the tournament. Whenever they needed to chase, they're able to come back. But when they're put in the position of we need to hold on to the lead, India turns into the Los Angeles Clippers.
240? Yeah, the 240 was just like not. I was not feeling that. Like I woke up that morning and I was just like, oh my goodness, like it's over.
I watched
like, you know what I mean. And then they
I watched the entire game. Yeah. I watched the entire game from start to finish. Here's the thing: 240 over 50. It's not terrible.
It's not terrible, but it's just against that team.
No, the problem is the bowling turned to crap. Like, and the bowling was perhaps India's biggest asset outside of Virat Kohli. The bowling turned to crap.
Mm-hmm.
Like Mohammad Shami, who took 7 wickets against New Zealand, he couldn't bowl anything. Jasprit Bumrah, he turned into a liability. Kuldeep Yadav, and
that was
I never want to talk about Mohammad Siraj for as long as I'm alive. His bowling has been a detriment to India. So let's see what happens.
Do you get like a T20 Finals prediction while we're talking about this? I guess I could also do mine, but
my prediction is India doesn't make the finals.
Okay, but do you have like who does, or like hypothetically, or do you not?
Australia versus the United States. Nuts. No,
I think Australia will be in it, but against
Australia, I expect to make it to the semis at minimum. At minimum.
Yeah, they're too good. They're just too good. Like they're bowling, they're batting, like the whole team. Like other than India, they have like the best players like in the world, maybe even better. Like both on both sides. Like in the IPL, it really showed. Look how many like both batters and bowlers were like top order, and then Mitch Stark and Mitch Marsh, and Travis Head, and so many guys.
I'm not gonna lie. I'd love to see this matchup again. Australia versus New Zealand. I'd love to see that.
Ooh, that'd be good. I'm gonna be an optimist. I want to see India win. Obviously, I want them to get their revenge on Australia in the T20.
We're not going to.
Well, everyone.
We're not going to.
Oh yeah, it's just like not. I don't know, but all these teams will make deep runs. Like I'm sure they'll come out. They'll all come out the group stage and all be super predictable, and then probably like India will probably fall off in a second.
No,
if they end up playing Australia, we'll probably beat them.
It's for the simple reason that as a team we haven't learned our lesson. Like that's why. Like India.
I'm just hoping the T20 format has the magic or something like that. Maybe.
India was extremely undisciplined when it mattered most. I mean, you saw Australia that game.
They cruised through the whole tournament.
Australia saved like 20, 30 runs by actually chasing after the ball instead of letting it reach the boundary.
I know.
Australia actually cared. India got lazy. Lazy.
Yeah.
And
in front of all their home fans.
I pinned the laziness solely to Rohit Sharma's laziness as a captain. Like, I think, and of course, sure. Rohit Sharma's a big piece for India, and he'll probably retire soon, and they'll leave a big void. Kohli's going to leave the bigger void, and of course, Kohli had a chance to win his second World Cup. Didn't happen. Thanks, Rohit Sharma, for being completely useless as a captain and not making any defensive adjustments whatsoever. So I still don't think India has learned the lesson at all. I don't see them making it to the finals, honestly.
Yeah, well, maybe I'm being a little bit of an optimist and saying that they do. I think they have a chance, but I'd go like if I had to pick a 5-4, it'd probably be like I don't know if Australia and England could both be in it, but concerning the same group.
It might be possible, but unlikely.
It might be because they might be in the different groups in the Super 8. I think I don't know how they like arrange that, but I'd probably go India, Australia, England, and then. I mean, I like the West Indies. I don't know if like they're actually going to be able to do it, but I don't know. I guess maybe I'm also rooting for them a little bit, but I'd like to see them in the Final Four. I think the home field can bring them up a notch where they could beat a team like a South Africa, or because I feel like South Africa is also pretty good, except for they don't really win the big tournaments either. But like I feel like they'd probably be like the most likely other Final Four team, but West Indies maybe beats a team like that or something.
South Africa won pretty. Yeah, South Africa went pretty deep in the um
They did. They went to the semis
in the World
in
Cup
the
final.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And they lost to Australia also. So they got
yeah.
their Australia got like double revenge on the team lost to in the group stage, which probably is rough for because I know they're also they're like a thorn in everyone's side, like not only ours, which is rough. But anyway, point is like I'd probably go India, Australia, England, and I would go West Indies, but I think like there's a home field boost. But if not, probably like maybe like a South Africa or something like that. But I don't know. I mean, I could see a whole bunch of different things happening, but yeah, that's probably my final four, I guess. And then optimistically, I'd go India versus Australia so they can get revenge. Plus, I just think they're just better two teams. I don't know. It's too bad Scotland, England kind of got rained out, but India, England, Australia. That's another big game coming up. Actually, I'm excited to see that one too. But yeah. Anyway. So you think it's gonna be like Australia versus like someone else? I guess probably like I don't
No,
even know who else would be
I
there.
got I got Aussie versus New Zealand.
New Zealand. Ooh, that's another. See, that's another one that could be in the final four also. But that group D is like really the group of death. I think because I think that all the other groups like Group A, I think you could pencil in India, Pakistan. Group B, I think you could pencil in England. Us probably put them in 10. And then Group C, I would go New Zealand and West Indies. Although Afghanistan, I think, could put up a good fight. Maybe Afghanistan because West Indies, I think, has been. I don't know. But then my whole thing with the West, you know what I mean? I think Afghanistan's going to compete with those two for a spot. And Group D, South Africa, I mean, I don't know about Sri Lanka with that performance, but I was thinking Sri Lanka and South Africa would make it. The Netherlands, they're very scrappy. They've beaten South Africa in these tournaments before, and they're in the same group. So none of these teams are really can go away, except for like maybe you put Nepal out, and even they played really well against like the Netherlands. So it's probably going to be. I'd put South Africa through there. Bangladesh is a wild card. They lost to the U.S. 2 out of 3. So maybe since Sri Lanka like stepped down, maybe they step up to the plate. I don't know. I just feel like that's the toughest group really predict. The other ones you can kind of figure out who's coming through. But I think Group D is going to be quite the interesting one to see who. I think South Africa makes it alongside them. I think anyone else could make it except for maybe Nepal. But even I think Nepal might play pretty decently. But I think any of the other three teams I think have a good chance of coming out of that group. But
Yeah,
um, but yeah. Anyway, so that's Cricket World Cup. I'm really excited to watch these matches. I really like that they're in our time zone too. Even though it's not ideal when it's 10:30 in the morning, it's much more ideal than it usually is, and or even 8:30 p.m. Like it's just great. Like before work and things like that. And it's just nice to be able to wake up and just what I mean, like not have to wake up in the middle of the night. And see
or
24 minutes fun and short.
or,
So
or during the middle of work, just tell the boss, you're going on the bathroom break.
take a
Just
break.
go in the toilet. Just go in
Yeah.
the toilet for 5-10 minutes. Pull out the phone, watch the game. There you go.
Yeah. Well, usually I have like half an hour work break at Chipotle or whatever. So like, those are during like the evening. So I'm probably gonna be pulling up the NBA and Stanley Cup because I think I have work on game one, which really sucks, but is what it is. But this is actually gonna be good for just enjoying some games in the morning. You know what I mean? All the big games are in the morning, but yeah. Anyway, I think that's. I think that pretty much covers everything that we talked about. Obviously, French Open, like the finals are this week, so maybe we could spend some more time talking about how that goes. On the next episode, I think it's wide open now because Djokovic retired and Nadal also lost to Zverev in the big, the comeback tour, and that's usually like his
You realize
tournaments as well.
you you realize the finals are scheduled for like Saturday, right? I mean Sunday.
Sunday, yeah,
Yeah. So
right.
like,
So I mean,
all right. Yeah. No, no.
so
Sorry.
like, what are you
I
saying? Do
was
you
just
want to
thinking
talk
something
about
else.
it or?
Yeah, I'll just speed through it real quickly, and then we can wrap this up. So, of course,
Uh huh.
Casper Ruud basically got a free pass to the semifinals with Djokovic out. Now the one matchup that's left to be determined is who will Casper Ruud be facing? Will it be De Minaur or will it be Zverev? I think regardless,
Mm-hmm.
if it's Zverev, he beats Ruud. If it's De Minaur, I think Rude will be that guy. And then Alcaraz versus Sinner. I got Sinner winning, and
Ooh,
then
yeah,
I think it'll be Sinner versus Zverev. and I'm gonna go with the upset. I'm gonna say Zverev wins, and I'm gonna say Zverev wins the French Open. And then as for the ladies, of course we have Swiatek versus Goff. I think Swiatek will probably destroy Coco. Um,
Probably.
yeah, and then we have a more interesting battle for the quarterfinals. We have Paulini, and then we have Rybakina. Uh, I'm gonna go I think Rybakina will win probably in straight sets. Then we have Andreeva,
Yeah.
and then Sabalenka. Sabalenka will probably
Mm.
sweep, and then we'll have Sabalenka versus Rybakina. I expect Sabalenka to go back to the finals, and it'll be against Swiatek. And this time, I'm gonna say Sabalenka wins the French too.
All right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think that'd be a little bit of an upside because I think Swiatek, I think she won like the last year in the French, and she's been like the best, especially on that surface for a while. But yeah, no, I think that could definitely, that could definitely happen with Sabalenka as well too. So, it's always exciting. And then yeah, like I said, men's tournament. Yeah, I could definitely see Zverev like coming out of this potentially, or I think I don't know. I feel like the winner of Sinner or Garcia, I mean Alcaraz. I think I don't know. I'd probably pick too because I've seen like their matches and like how competitive they could be. Even like with Djokovic, players of that caliber. And not saying Zverev can't. He definitely can. But would that be Zverev's like first major, or did he like win a major before? If he were to like win that?
Um, one of my buddies is really good with like he knows like everyone's major titles. I think this would be his first, because I don't have everyone's like
Yeah,
I don't have
I
everyone's
believe
memorized right
so.
off the
Yeah.
bat. Yeah, I don't have everyone's memorized right off the bat unless if it's Federer, Djokovic, Nadal, or Serena. So or McEnroe.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Well, yeah. No. Yeah. Oh, he won. Okay, it says he won the gold medal at the Olympics in 2020. But the
no, we're
Olympics
just
are
talking
this
about
year. I
the
can't
Grand
wait to talk
Slams.
about that. Yeah, Grand Slams. No, well, you contested he lost the final in 2020 in U.S. Open to Team. So that's the only one I'm seeing. So yeah, I guess not. But this could be as a year as any if he were able to do it. I think he has a good chance against like team players. I keep seeing Garcia in there. Alcaraz and Sinner. I think like he has a good chance to beat those like. Actually, I probably think Zverev has yeah, might even get the upset and knock off whoever wins between Alcaraz and Sinner. But yeah, no, I totally agree with that. No, either way, it's gonna be really good. I can't wait. It's just like such a busy time in sports. Like we got all these, NBA Finals, Stanley Cup Finals, French Open, Cricket World Cup. The Olympics are coming on later this summer. I can't wait to talk about that in the podcast. That'll bring like a whole new dimension to this. But anyway, in the meantime, this has been an episode of Sports Vibe. Can't wait to talk more about, all of this, especially, more in-depth analysis of the NBA Finals and Stanley Cup Finals, and the other stuff. But, in more in-depth on NBA and Stanley Cup Finals games as they get played. A couple more weeks of that, and it should be really good to talk about that next week. But in the meantime, this has been another episode of Sports Vibe. I'm Arnav Sarkar signing off for Jitesh Krishnan, and we will see you next week.